In this video, we're going to learn how to solve a first-degree equation in the context of an interest word problem. So take, for instance, this problem here. Jack plans to invest $52,000. He invests part at 5% interest and the rest at 4% interest. He earned a total of $2,290 at the end of the first year. How much did he invest at 5%? I'm going to come back to this slide in a minute here. But first, we're going off this basic simple interest formula. Principal times rate times time. Principal is your initial amount. Rate is the rate as a decimal, so percent as a decimal. And T stands for time. So just think about it for a minute. If you invested $100, that would be your P, $100, at 5% interest. That would be multiplying by 0.05. For 1 year, the interest you earn would just be 5% of $100. 100 times 0.05 will be $5. So that would be the interest that you earn, $5. Okay, now back to our problem. The issue we have here is that Jack is investing a total amount, but in two different ways. One of them is at 5% interest. The other is at 4% interest. So we have two different interest rates. We know that the total interest earned is $2,290. So this is actually the sum of two separate interest problems. So again, that's the sum of two separate interests. Interest earned at 5% plus interest earned at 4% is $2,290. So now it says how much did he invest at 5%? So that gives us a good idea of what x is going to be. Usually with a word problem, you always want to start identifying what the variable will stand for. Let x equal the amount, which that's principal, the amount invested at 5%. Now to help us organize our thoughts here, I usually make a table. And the first column of my table is basically describing, I don't want to use that, basically describing the different parts that go into this formula. So there's, some kind of, we're going to get some kind of expression that related to the 5%. We're going to get some kind of expression related to the 4%. And then there's also some information related to the total. Now remember, we're going off the formula interest equals principal times rate times time. So that gives us our column headers. Principal, rate, time, and then interest. I equals principal times rate times time. I always reserve the last column for my, formula. The formula is an interest formula. Let's make this a little neater here. Okay, so let's fill in with some information here. We're letting x equal the amount invested at 5%. Now we know that as a rate, 5% is 0.05. And we also know that the interest earned was after 1 year. So really it's just principal times rate. So the interest on that is 0.05x. 5% of x. 5% of whatever he invested at 5%. That's how you write 5% of x, 0.05x. That's an expression that gives us the interest earned at 5%. Now, it just says in our problem that he invested the rest. I want to highlight that. He invested the rest at 4%. So the rest of it was at 4%. The rest of what? The rest of the $52,000. That's the total amount that he invested. He invested $52,000 in total. So that goes here. So now how do we express the rest? we have to take away x from 52,000. So we write 52,000 minus x. That's how you express the rest. 0.04. 1 year. So this is 0.04 times 52,000 minus x. We already know the total interest. The total interest is 2,290. Okay, so now here we go. This is our equation right here. Interest earned at 5% plus interest earned at 4% equals total interest. So that's the equation right there. So let me write that down a little better for you to see it, and then we'll go ahead and solve this. So 0.05x plus 0.04 times 52,000 minus x equals 2,290. Now remember, those two, the two parts right there, are actually interests. So we have interest earned at 5% plus interest earned at 4% equals total interest. All right, now you're going to have a calculator and work along with me here. So we're going to have 0.05x plus, now we have to distribute the 0.04. So 0.04, or 4/100ths, times 52,000 is 2,080, minus 0.04x equals 2,290. Now we have to group the like terms. 0.05x minus 0.04x is 0.01x plus 2,080 equals 2,290. Subtract 2,080 from both sides, and we're left with 0.01x equals 210. Now divide by 0.01, and x equals 21,000. So he invested 21,000 at 5% because that's what x stood for. Now we can also figure out how much he invested at 4% by just subtracting 21,000 from 52,000, and that's 31,000 at 4%. Now if you want to check this, you can by just doing 0.04 times 31,000 plus 0.05 times 21,000, and make sure you get 2,290. And you do.